It's Flusion time.
With the new Space Lab 1 put into a low Flusion orbit, the Flusion colony had a stepping stone into the stars above them. The station housed a hitchhiker module for crew pods, the latest in scientific tech, communications, enough snacks to tide any full crew for months on end, and docking ports at every corner to facilitate future station growth. The new tech advancements from the Sonar probe missions came with mining and robotic parts for Bill's latest engineering designs and experiments, or at least the blueprints for the parts to buy. The tech tree was a mire of questionable mod installations. While the further advancements in the tech tree remain locked behind the unupgraded research and development facility, research development in certain tech garnered blueprints for parts that were bought, but the parts would remain unavailable until unknown conditions were met, or at least that is what the administrator of this universe is hoping for. New mod scientific components tended to be hit or miss on the availability. Needed resource parts or advancements and upgrades in the colony's space yard is thought required to necessitate access to the new units. Nevertheless, the colony pressed on in testing the new design features and parts that could be obtained and included in the Flusion exclusive builds. As we have come to know, Flusion is a slightly different monster than Kerbal. Its atmospheric river constantly pushes flying craft eastward, and it was learned that larger wings helped cut into these forces, as it also helped facilitate control at higher altitudes in Flusion's thick and disturbed upper atmosphere. The Flusians pressed on in fulfilling lucrative contracts based at home as they needed less expensive vehicles and platforms to accomplish missions. The old but reliable Terra rover became Bill's go-to platform to modify for specific operations. The Terra rover went from a basic short-range science expeditionary vehicle to a mining vehicle and even into a somewhat flying Terra rover. So, when Jebediah came to Bill, requiring an all-in-one launch vehicle able to lift crew into a low Flusion orbit, capable of docking with the new space lab and returning safely to Flusion soil, the colony was half expecting. But Bill had plans. Through a series of manned and unmanned tests, a launch and return vehicle was Flusion refined. With the spin of Flusion and the river of eastward atmospheric wall, a craft could return into the spin of Flusion without much heat shield or ablator. Addition of air brakes, after properly installing each one individually, helped reduce the craft's re-entry speed, as well as try to balance the vehicle to stay upright prone. Finally, getting all the air brakes to deploy and changing from the overcorrecting tail fins to the low profile of the Mercury fins gave the craft the capability to correctly re-enter the atmosphere and stay prone to the direction that would keep the engines aligned with the heat of descent. With the platform tested and retested, it was time for its purpose to be fulfilled. Docking with Space Lab 1. The success of the colony's space agency would rely on their ability to rendezvous vessels in orbit and dock them together. This would be the building blocks of space conquest for the Flusion colony, refueling craft Mid-mission, construction of stations, space colonies, and assembly of starships needed the capability of this vital maneuver, a maneuver that requires patience, unwavering focus, and the ability to keep fat fingers off the wrong buttons. From the successes and engineering advancements of the Joey project came the launch platform that would begin to carry the Flusians into the stars. The Explorer Discovery engine boasted a dry launch of 5,458 meters per second of Delta V. 2 HPF upper fuel tanks covered by a A10 dual tank and pressurized by a A4 dual fuel tank spit fuel into the main skipper engine for launch procedures and 4 Thud engines for use past the initial launch stage. With this engine platform, the Flusians would begin to send out manned missions into the stars, starting with the maternal Jovian heavenly body of Mother Sonna. The Sonna Discovery 1 would be piloted by Captain Jebediah and accompanied by Science Officer Bill. They would be the first Flusians beyond the influence of the colony's celestial home and would set the craft to sail around the Jovian mother of Sonna. It was the experience of the Sonna Explorer Probe Mission 8 that showed the Flusians a path for a close flyby of the gas blue giant with a slingshot home back to Flusion soil, and Jebediah would follow its path. The successful flyby of Mother Sonna gave Bill a chance to collect a surprisingly significant amount of science information and points about the gas giant that held Flusion in a gravitational embrace. With as much science as could be collected from the varying amount of experimental and measuring devices as the craft could use and carry, Jebediah and Bill experienced an uneventful return to the pool of Flusion. It was entirely unknown if the vehicle would perform the re-entry phase without burning up, but the craft proved entry-worthy, and the safe return of Captain Jeb and Science Officer Bill completed one of the most successful manned missions to date for the young Flusion colony. Excited to repeat the mission with another manned mission, this time one of further exploration, longer duration, and all caution thrown to the wind, the administrator commissioned another mission around the Jovian goddess. Wanting to fulfill a fairly cheap contract for the amount of expense, the contract required science to be collected from around the orbit of Flusion's celestial mother, Sonna. The amount of fuel needed to pull the craft past the sister moon Muno and her orbit came down to guessing that 4 extra Thumper solid fuel boosters added to the Launch Explorer engine platform would probably perhaps do it. Crewed by 2 fresh new recruits, Sonna Explorer Mission 2 was sent into the influence of the gas giant with the understanding that the slingshot method of previous successful missions that returned craft to Flusion safely would be abandoned, with the orbital maneuver of putting the Sonna Explorer into an orbit around the blue Jovian planets. With the Explorer 2 accomplishing a tight orbit around Sonna, the limited science obtained would still contribute to the pool of science points collected previously. Once the primary part of the mission completed, it was time for the Explorer 2 to begin its burn back out to the orbital path of Flusion and the safety of its gravitational influence. The fuel waning, the crew questioning, and mission control pondering, the administrator struggled to find an encounter with Flusion at every orbital turn. It seemed that the sister moon Muno called more than the path of Flusion's influence. But when the Explorer 2 encountered Muno, something was already there. Bill